The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Listen in as your host, Casey Colburn, brings together a perfectly picked panel of guests to discuss hot topics and events within the metaphysical and paranormal field. But don't worry, should the discussions get too heated, our studio's witch will sound her cackle to simmer the cauldron back down. Listen for new episodes of Cauldron Talk with Casey Colburn every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. only on Paranormal Buzz Radio. Welcome to Cauldron Talk. This is Season 2, Episode 7. I'm your host, Casey Colburn, and today we welcome to the circle Coyote Chris Sutton, Lilith Dorsey, and Jessica Ansley. Today we were talking about the arts of crafts. Welcome to Cauldron Talk, guys. How are we all doing?
Good.
Great. Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing good. Glad to hear. So before we begin, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
My name is Lilith Dorsey. I have an MFA in Cinema Studies and Anthropology. I'm a voodoo priestess and the author of Voodoo and Afro-Caribbean Paganism, Love Magic, Orisha's Goddesses and Voodoo Queens, and the newly released Water Magic, and the co-host of the new show, Pop Culture.
Well, that's a pretty tough act to follow. My name's Coyote Chris Sutton. I've been shamanism for almost 27 years now. I practice the Siwas medicine on the Pacific Northwest coast, and I've been doing that for about 20 years after doing Lakota medicine for about 6 or 7. So I do lots of shamanic work. I have been on paranormal television shows, Ghost Adventures, Dead Files, and Ghost Lab, and do lots of these types of things. Do lots of podcasts, and just basically talking about how people have medicine and how they can draw it out and use it. That's my big thing in life, to show people what they can do, who they are as a person. I do have a video coming up soon on VidiSpace called The Shock and Awe, the spiritual journey of Coyote Chris Sutton, and the book form of that will be out before Christmas, my publisher promises me. So hopefully that will happen, but it's always a pleasure to be on, and I'm really excited to listen to our other two guests tonight. This sounds really interesting, Casey.
I'm very excited too.
All right, I guess it's my turn. I'm Jessica Ansley. I am a paranormal investigator and I do mediumship. I guess I'm what you call a kitchen witch. I don't like to put too much of a name on it. I just do a lot with herbology and studying of herbs and things like that. And I own a business called Windsong Apothecary. You can find me on Etsy. And I make different healing herbs, mixtures and teas and like satchels and things like that. And each one is infused with my intent for whatever the customer needs, or whether it's desire needs or libido, things like that, heart health, other things like that. So that's basically what I use most in my practice.
Very cool. All right. So today we are going to be talking about the different types of crafts and arts that we actually put within all of our practices that we do, including the paranormal field, because there's definitely a lot of cool little gadgets and things that we've been creative enough to, make and implement into the paranormal field. So it's within everything that we do, I think. So with that, my first question is, what are some traditional items that were and are made in your particular practice?
Okay, wonderful. My primary practice is New Orleans voodoo, and there's a lot of different crafts that we use in that particular tradition. What comes to mind first would probably be the sequin veve flags that people make, and I've heard them called poor man's stained glass windows, but that's a little reductionist and insulting, because when you think about it, people pray when the needle goes through the thread, they pray when it goes through the fabric, they pray when it goes through the sequin, they pray when it goes back down through the bead, they pray when it goes through the sequin again, and they pray when they tie it off. So there's really a lot more energy and intent going into the creation of these things, and they serve as representatives of the Loa or the Orisha for us here in the New Orleans voodoo tradition. So that's the main one that we do. But then we also make things like pake Congo and soul jars, which are basically little balls or jars full of magic. Some of them are used to honor the ancestors. Some of them are to bring about change, but they're almost always decorated with things like cowrie shells and ribbons and beads and sequins again, obviously. So these are two, I think, of the main things that people would recognize, because a lot of times these artifacts have found their way into museums and things like that. But for us, they really are very personal, and they're either kept at the home or they're kept at the temple or the shrine with your priest or priestess who is teaching you. So it's kind of keeps the family together in a way, and keeps the magic of the family together in a way.
The way I do stuff, and well, Lilith put it so well, that you are, every time you're making any type of object like that, everything you do is a prayer. Everything, every touch, every thought is focused totally on that piece and what its primary, what it needs to be. And it's usually when I make stuff, I make it for individual people. So I reflect on who these people are and what they need at the time. And probably the biggest thing I make for people is medicine pouches, and they're special medicine pouches. I mean, medicine pouches are very personal things. And usually a person would construct their own. These are for specific reasons or purposes. Perhaps they need protection. Perhaps they need more energy. And it just all depends on what the person needs. And so I never really go into I'm going to make this, but I don't have a preconceived idea of what it is. So I keep a bunch of stuff around the house for that type of thing. And I also have a very close metaphysical store close by that I can get things. But I just kind of go trance out and focus on that person, and spirit tells me what to do. And if I'm smart enough to get out of the way, then I usually come up with something pretty good. And so I've made several of these things for people. And people who are very, very sick, I make those too. It just, you got to match the person with the object that you give them. And, and I know every stone's supposed to mean something for this, that, and the other, and I get confused with that sort of thing. So I just let my heart, which is where spirit comes through, come, and then I choose that way. And I put it in the bag, and I really remember what I put in, but that's okay. It's just, that's the way, for me, that's how it works. In our medicine tradition is we let spirit guide us what to do and tell us what to do. And so, that's how I work it.
For me, I use, like I said earlier, a lot of not old, but herbs that they would have used back in the day before modern medicine was created for healing, and different options or things that they would need. Whether it's lavender for relaxation or, meditation, or, mullein for its expectorant properties, as well as helping with things like meditation, mugwort for the same reason. So I kind of have learned what each of these herbs are capable of doing and what they would have used in the past, and I'm able to create things in a holistic way now. Like I said, I guess I'd be like a kitchen witch, but I also am like a divination witch, and that I do the mediumship as well. So I do have different things, and recommendations for different mixtures for people that are on their own spiritual path, as far as mediumship or, spirit talking or walking, things like that. If they want to do different types of, dream walks, things like that, I'm capable of making a concoction that will work personally for them. Another thing that I use the herbs for is things in like medicinal and healing baths. So I'm able to put them in little satchels that will float around with them in the bathtub, that infuse the water with the magical properties of the herbs and oils that they may not want to ingest, but can still use those magical herbs for that as well.
It's so cool to hear all the different like crafts and things that all the different cultures and practices use. I myself, I do a lot of beadwork, and that really connects me to my roots, to my ancestors. And it's something that I'm learning side by side with my mom. So it's really kind of cool in that way. And we put in the intention. I just recently made one for Chris, and it's got the wolf's hair in it. It's a rosette of the medicine wheel, and it's got wolf's hair in it for protection. So I do kind of a little bit with that. With my work, like we'll use the dream catchers, that type of thing. It's, really kind of interesting because I am so eclectic. So I've got different things that I make for the two sides of me, you know, the Wiccan side and the native side. So I've got a lot of different things that I really work with the crystals and things. I'll make, I'll turn them into jewelry. I'll tumble my own stones and things like that, and then turn them into jewelry, set the intention for whatever specific gemstone or crystal is necessary. So, it's so cool, for me to learn and see all the different crafts because I am so creative. It's one of my most favorite things. So I'm so honored and so excited to be talking to you guys all about this because I know that you guys are also very creative. So what are some of the modern items that you guys use in your practices and in like with the investigations and things like that, that you would consider to be very creative?
I think there's things that I use to basically diagnose what's present in a space, what's present in a situation, whether it be paranormal activity, whether it be, ancestor energy, whether it be other spirit presences. And a lot of times what I do with that is, craft pendulums. That's something I've had a lot of luck with. My goddaughter also has done a lot of custom pendulums and things like that for divination purposes and feeling out different energies in the area. And then I also do something where we put beigbets on candles, either with glitter or carved with, highlighted with other types of, rub and buff wax or something like that, or metals or things like that. So basically we're crafting something that will work as an energy meter for what's in the situation. And then we pay attention to the candle. We pay attention to the pendulum. We pay attention to, maybe we're burning some incense of some kind that we've crafted. But how is that reacting in the space? Is there a place where it starts to burn black? Is there a place where it starts to go out? Is there a place where, something goes horribly wrong? And then, oh, gee, something's in here. So it's really about paying attention with the intention that you've put in it. That's a pun for you. But that's how I describe it because I think that's really what's manifesting. It has to be a give and take between the item and also the situation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Lilith. Like when I do paranormal work, I got a couple of gadgets. I got like a K2, and I never do the EVP stuff because I get too bored listening to tape and watching tape, so I don't do that stuff. But I love mixing, and in case you've seen this at Hinsdale, where we get all the instruments out, then we get the drum out and start playing and singing and see how that reacts. And I do that I've done that quite a few places, and they seem to work well together. I've used REM pods and things like that for communication. And everybody rags me for this, but I don't care because I like it. I've got this necrophonic on my telephone. All right, so in my medium, my standing joke, I'm a medium rare. So I get some stuff. It's sort of neat just to play with those things, just to see if it backs up what you're saying. And it's worked pretty well for me. I don't, even though it's like a $10 app on your phone. We do the shaman stuff, and we'll do stuff like that and see what happens. And there's all the tools you can use, whatever. If that works, that works. That's pretty cool. But most of the time I investigate, I do the shamanic energy. Let's reach out with the energy and see what we find first, and then go in with the equipment a lot too as well. So I tend to trust that more than I trust anything else. But it is kind of neat to verify and things like that with it. So, yeah, and as far as the medicine stuff, I just use the traditional things. I haven't gotten anything new with those. So basically in the paranormal, that's when I use modern tools.
For me, obviously, I do use a lot of tools when I'm on my paranormal investigations because even as a medium, I find myself constantly second guessing the things that I get. I feel like that's just a human thing, not a medium thing. But I do like to have my Spiritus app and Necro and things like that. And dowsing rods. I guess those kind of go way back as far as dowsing rods go, because they were used for water back in the day to dig wells and things like that. But as a more recent thing for spirit communication, you know, I've made those with my team and out of coat hangers or copper or whatever. And then another thing that I guess would be a modern item for me, it's modern because I never knew how to make it until I started really looking into it recently. But I started making my own rolled incense and cone incense for investigators to use, that I've planned to hang or hand out at investigations to the families, that if we do residential investigations, they can have some on hand for when they want to do their own cleansings when we're not there. So that's, it kind of is a modern thing, but kind of isn't, because people have been using incense for years, but for me, it's rather new. But I like to do that. And like I said before, I always, you know, put my intention into whatever I'm making, even if it's just jewelry or things like that, because I've dabbled in jewelry as well. But one thing I do, like I mentioned last time, I do like the bathtub stuff, and I recently started making bath bombs over the last few years. And so I have the satchels that kind of float in there, but I also have the bath bombs that is kind of a new trend, I guess, would be modern trend. But it's got the herbs and things and oils that people can use and that I actually use. My kids absolutely love them as well. So I guess that's one of the main modern things that I currently make for my practice and other people's practices.
Yeah, it's so cool to kind of see how things kind of do modernize, you know, how things kind of adapt. It's so hard to really, like, because it's kind of spread out. So it's kind of hard to just pinpoint one specific thing that's been modernized. But I'm sure we've all been there where, you know, you don't have something that's necessarily like traditional, so you have to move on to what you do have. And I think it's kind of cool. You know, we do kind of grow and adapt with those certain type of things, you know, because we don't have the same things that our ancestors would have had. And so we've had to kind of adapt and grow and change it so that it still works for us, with it still having those roots to what our ancestors were using and doing. So it's still pretty cool. Do you have, or do you make anything for your own personal practice, like something that you would never want to not have, like on your altar or at your, you know, in your paranormal bag or whatever? Is there something that you will always have that you made personally for your practice?
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of things I made personally for my practice that I would never, you know, be either at home or outside of my home without. I also make a bunch of, you know, magical baths and floor washes and cleanses for the home and things like that. And then there's also portable versions of that. I have a happiness spray that I make that's in my water magic book that I take everywhere, you know, and I've even incorporated that, you know, talk about modern practices. I've even incorporated some of those ingredients into my hand sanitizer, and people can find that recipe on my Voodoo Universe blog. But the idea of just like crafting my own magic and putting it in the hand sanitizer, because a lot of these things, you know, she mentioned lavender before. Lavender's antifungal, lavender's antiviral, lavender's antibacterial. It's all of those things. So by putting that on top of the hand sanitizer, you have the magic, and then you also have all of those scientific properties on top of that. So I certainly wouldn't want to leave home without that under any circumstances, because then I know I'm protected both spiritually and physically from whatever is out there or in here. And that's something I have. And then there are also things, you know, there are magical incantations I do on my jewelry, magical washes I do for my jewelry and things like that, that I also have on me at almost all times as part of the protection for my house. And similarly, there are things that I do for healing and health, especially during these difficult pandemic times, that I do personally, and I also encourage my god kids to do, that I don't share, but again, it's the same type of thing where we make a healing jar, and a certain magical combination of things goes in that for them based on both divination and intuition. And, you know, our practice goes back 4,000 years. And so, you know, there are things that we know that you always put in this to, you know, keep plague away, to keep somebody healthy, to keep away infectious disease. So all of those things, especially at this time, I focus on.
Let's see, on my end, well, I get, personal, I mean, because what I do, when I do paranormal work or spiritual work and things like that, sometimes I attract the attention of things that, you don't want coming around. So I've kept my house warded for, several years now by planting something in each cardinal direction and doing now see, some people call it spell. I just manipulate the energy, to create a barrier around my house. And it works really well. And some things get in, but it's only the things that I want to get in that are peaceful. So only things with light can come in. So it's kept us pretty safe, except something always likes to come in. My wife's got all these angel statuettes in the china cabinet. Something comes in and turns them all the other way. So that's always kind of funny. But that's probably a message to her. So that's something she needs to look at. But I always have my medicine pouch on me. That's something I've had it for years and years, and I put stuff in, I take stuff out just as things change. But mostly it's stayed pretty static for a long time. But that's something I never go anywhere without. I also, when I do a staff, now I don't carry a staff with me very often, but if I think that something's going to get hurt, if I need it, it tells me it needs to go with me. And so, but the way I made that, I got it out of a piece, I got oak, which I really wanted. And actually, there's an oak tree that had been hit by lightning. So I was really excited to get that. So what I do is when I do a staff or anything like that, I bury it in the dirt for a while. I put it in the water for a while. I hang it up in the tree in the air for a while. Then it ended up by putting over fire and letting it soak the fire. And sometimes it, blackens a little bit, but, and so you got all the four elements in there. And then and like Jessica's saying, you put your intent into that object as you go along and what you want it to do. And I you make a little place to put like some type of crystal or something, and whatever I feel needs to go in there. So yeah, when it comes to my personal and my family's protection, I pretty much take that all myself. I don't generally go out and buy stuff for that. I will do that. Now, one thing I do have, and Lilith, you might appreciate this a little bit, but a friend of mine makes all these little bags that were supposedly ward off evil. So it's got a pile of graveyard dirt, a little alligator hand, and a coffin nail in it. So that's and it felt good. It felt okay to me, so I keep it with me.
That'll do it.
Yeah, that's what I figured. that was and I wear silver on my right arm. When we are shaking hands, I do that. So yeah, there's all these little things that some of I've created, made myself, and others, there's a couple of things that I've got from other people who I trust. And once looking at them, if I get the feel for it, I like it, then I'll stick with it. And so yeah, as far as that, for my personal, like for use on my person, that's pretty much what I do. But it's all stuff that you got to put a lot of thought into. Just don't get it off the shelf somewhere and stick it out in your room and say, this is going to protect me from this, that, and the other. That's not the way it works. You got to put time in with it. You got to charge it, and you got to put your stamp on it and let it know your feelings and get a relationship with that piece, so it will respond for you.
I totally think that's amazing, Chris, that you're able to do that and have all these different tools that you're able to protect yourself with. I struggle sometimes with protection. I have a few things that I use that I don't like to leave home without. I've made my own like moonstone pendant that I use for not only my own protection, but it helps charge my own spiritual abilities, I guess you'd say. Mm-hmm. One other thing that I really love that I make is my divination tea, and I use it all the time when I'm getting ready to go into, especially residential investigations where I don't really know what I'm going into all the time. And we do a lot of residentials with my team, more so than like the touristy type investigations, I guess you'd say. But for me, I use that divination tea not only as a way of kind of grounding myself, but as a way of meditating and kind of getting into that trance-like state where it's able to calm me down. Like I said earlier, it has a little bit of lavender in there. It has kava root, which helps me stay focused yet calm at the same time. Helps me get into what I call my theta brain state. Mm-hmm. which is a very scientific thing for people that don't know about it. Meditation and going into the theta brain state is going to help you get closer to your guides than any other brain state. So that's one thing that I really always like to use, besides my pendant. And I like to use my incense, like I was saying earlier. When I go into investigations, I make my own little blend depending on what we're dealing with. And I use my little conch shell because I like to make sure that it comes from something that was once living. And then when I'm done, I take the incense ashes and I put it in a piece of bread and I give it back to nature. So that's kind of just one of the things that I use and will always use, I think, in my practice personally.
It's kind of situational for me. For when I'm going to like investigations and stuff, I kind of take a moment, just kind of listen to my guides. Are always telling me what I should bring and what I shouldn't bring. Even right down to like when I was doing my gardens for ghosts, they were like, I had it's like one of those mosquito cell things that's supposed to keep mosquitoes away.
Thermocell.
Yeah, I had one of those, and I saw it on my porch, and my spirit guide said, you should bring that. I didn't bring it, got completely chewed up by gnats. So even just, like, with tools like that, like, I'll sit and I'll listen to them, and, you know, I know I've said this a bunch of times on my show, but when I don't listen to them, I learn very quickly that I should have listened to them. It's never been anything, like, dramatic or, like, bad or anything like that, but, it's, in the end, kind of a little bit on the hilarious side, I think, because my spirit guides are also very, very sarcastic. So, it's you had to be there type of thing. But yeah, everything that I bring is chosen specifically for whatever it is that I'm going into. At the Hinsdale house, I wear a lot of obsidian, and I've got like an obsidian bracelet. I've got jewelry that I've made personally for, protection and warding. I make what I call, which is black salt spray. And it's just a Mod Podge of everything that could protect you in a spray bottle. And then I can spray that on me. I do use the Himalayan black salt. So if you do make this, make sure you filter out that water, because otherwise you will smell like sulfur. And then people will think you're a demon. So.
Yeah, you want that.
Yeah, so definitely make sure you filter that out. But it works pretty well for me. You know, everything is definitely situational. It comes down to that intention, whatever your intention is needed for whatever whatever is necessary. So I, definitely a lot of crafting. I'm sure you guys have seen a little bit on my Facebook. I'm constantly doing something, especially for divination. I make the Ouija boards, and I do a lot with the pendulums and the pendulum boards and things like that too. So, always crafting. So is there a favorite thing, though, that you guys have made for, like, a holiday or, like, just a tradition? Maybe it's just February 4th or something, and you decide that's the day that I need to make a dream catcher, and we make a dream catcher every day on this day just because. Is there something like that that's very well rooted in your traditions that it's just become kind of a favorite, kind of like jack-o'-lanterns?
Well, one of my favorite things to do is to spend time with young people. You know, my kids are grown now, but I still have a lot of young friends that my friends have had kids and now let me play with them. And a couple of years ago, we came up with the idea of making Samhain fairies. And I know I sent you a photograph of these, but I wanted a way for the kids to remember the ancestors that was fun and playful around Samhain time, that was not scary. So we took some of those small little skeletons that you can get at the craft store or at the discount store, and we glued little butterfly wings and fairy wings onto them. And then we gave them special messages, things like believe, laugh, dance, all those things that the ancestors really remind us of. And it was so beautiful for me to be able to create something that the kids could make with me and have a good time and sort of understand what we were doing. And it didn't really matter if they were 2 or if they were 6. And I was living in New York at the time, and what we did was leave them all over the subway and do a little photo shoot. And the ancestors really went to town that night. And I still do it now. We still have some of them. So that was my most fun thing that I made in a crafty way.
Wow. I'm just sitting here racking my brain. Is there anything I do on certain days? I make certain things, and I just can't say I do. I'm not going to make anything up. No, it's like I might do a prayer on a certain day or something like that. But as far as, that's creation in itself too. But it's my medicine path is so situational is what it boils down to. It's I guess what the spirits tell me is like, you just be ready when we need you, and we'll take you where you need to go. And once I quit fighting that, it's worked out pretty well. So I'm not going to break that too much. I mean, I do have an altar that I use, but no, I mean, everything that happens with me is because somebody needs it. And so yeah, I mean, everything's situational, spirits. In my tradition, there's not anything. I've got to be honest here, and so yeah, that's not how I roll usually. So that's pretty cool though. What you guys done?
For me, I would say there's no certain day, but just like I said before, the one thing that I always like to have when I go into an investigation is my divination tea. So I'll make that up. Other than that, the only other thing I can think of is around the holidays, I like to do special cookies and stuff with my kids or whatever that I do, like snickerdoodles that I use my herbs for and things like that. But other than that, I don't think I can think of any other crafts specifically that I do on a specific day.
Yeah, we in my house we're very crafty. So we do like for Halloween and things. We'll do like the usually we make all of our costumes. So that's a lot of fun. But we'll do the jack-o'-lanterns. I set up my altar and everything for that, but that's not really, it's witchcrafty, but it's not crafty. Yeah, we just do a lot with the ancestral work. And so when we're building the costumes, we'll sit and we'll talk and we'll remember those that we've lost. And, we'll talk about everybody that's still with us too. We'll, all of our goals and dreams and stuff that we have, we'll sit and we'll talk and we'll just kind of enjoy being together and setting that positive energy for, the days to come. So that's quite a lot of energy work too with that, because it is bringing everybody back together. Even if it's just for the holiday or what be it. We do so much. I've been doing a lot of beadwork lately because, my dad is sick, and so we've been doing a lot with praying and working with that medicine, trying to hold space for him. So there's so many different things, even like with like the drumming and stuff like that, like Chris, that's a craft all on its own there. I mean, just making those. I don't know if anybody's ever seen how you make a native drum, but it's quite a lot of work. So, and really anything with traditional crafts like that. Like I've seen people actually, pound out splints to make the baskets and things like that. There's so much energy, so much work that actually goes into each piece that it's quite remarkable. So it's not, if you do see this stuff, like, I don't know, if you go to a powwow or go to just a fair, when you go buy these things, like, these are actually handmade items that took a lot of thought to make. So I appreciate all those. So how did you guys learn how to make some of these items?
I always liked making crafts and making spells and potions and all of those things, I would craft stuff in the kitchen when I was 2 years old, and I'd craft stuff in the bathroom sink when I was 3 and nobody was looking. And as I got older, I just sort of, I was a camp counselor, and then when my daughter was young, I was a Girl Scout leader. Apparently, you're a Girl Scout leader for life. That's the thing. So it was always incorporating some of these natural ideas in simple and easy and humble ways where you could make magic with something really simple. A few years ago, I did a post on, I think it's called 10 Simple Yule Crafts to Make and Give. And just something as simple as, oh, look at this. I can take cinnamon sticks and I can turn them into a pentacle and I can hang that in my house for protection. And again, it's something that you could do if you were, old enough to use the glue gun, maybe 8 or 9 with supervision, or it's something you could do if you're 60 or 70 years old and you can still hold your hands straight. But it's something where you can actually produce something. And for me, that's part of the magic of the process, knowing that you can take something simple and humble and turn it into something sacred and useful and beautiful and really part of the holiday or part of the season.
Wow, I'm humbled now. That was amazing. Boy, I'm more of a destroyer than a builder, and I mean that in a positive way. But one time I got inspired. Now, I initially started my shamanic path. I was in the Lakota tradition, and with medicine wheels, and that's how I learned how to do the medicine pouches and how to make my medicine bag. They're two different things. I use my medicine bags for healing work. The pouch stays on me all the time, but can be used for anything. One time I got creative. And I think probably my wife took me to Michael's or something like that, and I was bored as hell. And so I saw this hoop. These like silver metal hoops. And so I got to look at it. So I bought some leather lacing and the flat, the rectangle shaped stuff. And then I got some paint. And so I made a mess. Well, actually, it's still hanging on my wall. And I made it probably 25 years ago. And so every once in a while that strikes me. I mean, there's other things like making staffs and things like that I've been taught. But yeah, to me, I was just inspired to do something like that. That was about the one time. Well, I know I've made a few things with sinew and whatnot. It's just been such a long time since I've done it. But yeah, I learned how to make necklaces. I can make necklaces. Eddie McGaw, Eagle Man, taught me how to do that a long time ago. But yeah, it's few and far between. And I just love, I know some real people who do so much cool crafty stuff, like Casey does, and Lilith, it looks like you do, and Jessica. So I'm like the poor stepson here of the artistic, but I do create things now and again. But Casey, I'm more of a musician and a speaker creatively than I am with my hands, and so. But yep, I've had a few victories along the way.
Yeah, that's still really, really cool, and that's still quite a lot of art to that too, though. Even just right down to like what I'm doing now with this podcast, it's still very creative. It's very art. A lot of thought goes into it. So there's not just with the physical, things that you can hold, but there's so much magic and creativity in just about everything that we do within our practices. So I'm very, very happy to be having this episode and kind of showing everybody that, because I think it gets overlooked way too easily.
For me, I learned the herbology stuff just by reading, honestly. I've been a creator and crafter my whole life. I remember my parents own a business still to this day, but as a kid, I'd go with them to work and I would get in trouble and get put in timeout, and my timeout was like this little corner. And one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go sit in the bathroom. And I started painting on the bathroom wall in watercolors because I was bored, and I thought my parents would be angry at me, but they actually were like, oh, it washes off. It's all good. And then even as a teenager, I was painting my own bedroom wall. So it started out with painting and then kind of worked my way through what I call the Pinterest of Jessica. Seriously though, I feel like Pinterest is like the bane of my existence in my pocketbook sometimes. I don't know if any other artsy people feel that way, but that's definitely how I feel. But yeah, I honestly just wanted to find things that I could use to help people besides doing mediumship. And so herbology kind of seemed the route to go, because I've been on medication in the past and still on medication. And then I've always felt like, wow, I wish I can get off because there's so many side effects. And now, I have the opportunity with the knowledge of herbs. I could try and get off anti-anxiety medication or things like that by using natural anti-anxiety things that the medicine was originally created from in the first place. So for me, that's kind of how it started with the herbology aspect.
Yeah.
Jessica, there's a term in the Sioux language. It's Renan Pajuta, which means like medicine plant woman. And whenever you talk, I think that pops in my head, so I just want to pass that along to you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so cool. I definitely appreciate the plant teachers and really any of the teachers, that we do work with. Lilith, you had mentioned the cinnamon with the pentagrams and stuff, and cinnamon is my favorite thing to use for protection. I absolutely love that idea, so I think I might try that this year for Christmas, because it's going to make the house smell beautiful anyways. But yeah, I love cinnamon for protection. It's something that I've always tried to get people to utilize a little bit more, because we do typically just go for like the sage and things like that, which the sage going extinct, we should try to promote the other wonderful, plants and herbs that we can use. Like cinnamon. So I love that idea so much. That's so cool. So simple too. It's just, I really like that idea.
Yeah, you don't need to be complicated, man.
Yeah. Sometimes that's how the best things come about too, is just simplicity. It's just easier. Sometimes it just looks nicer too. So do you guys teach others how to make certain items?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like to teach, young people to do it, because I think it's a way, even if they're not necessarily pagan or whatever, they can see that it's a star, and they can recognize that, like you said, it's got this scent. What happens to them when they smell it? What happens to them when they walk by it? Cinnamon is one of those things that really does, protect and heal and transform, and all those things going into it. And it is something that's also, we cook with it, so you can use it at all times. So I've done magical cooking classes. I've done, like I said, my new water magic book has a whole bunch of things in there about crafting and stuff. And I've been doing a lot of workshops surrounding that lately. And I've also been doing a lot of workshops, especially now that more people are home, doing things with magical gardening and stuff like that, so people can extend that energy into their garden and, as we were saying before, make their home a protective space by what they plant, by what they grow, nourishing themselves by eating what they grow and using that in their magic, and just sort of reconnecting to the whole cycle of life and resituating yourself in it in a healthy and productive and sustainable way. So I try and do that whenever I can.
I try to teach people that the earth, the mother, she gives us so many things we can use. One thing I do when I'm teaching classes sometimes is to take them out. There's a lovely wooded area where I live. It's a nature preserve, and there's all sorts of elementals there. I mean, there's little fairies, and it's just a cool place. And I love going there. But I take them out there and I say, go out and collect, with your feelings. It's usually like the last thing that we do in the class, whether it's shamanism or developing your spiritual energy, and find some things and create something that you feel and that you feel you need to create, and come back and explain why you picked it and what you did. And it's such a cool exercise. And making fetishes like that are pretty cool. I forgot to mention I do that every once in a while. If somebody needs a healing or something like that, I might do that. It's just one of those clubs in my golf bag. But just to teach people that everything is sacred. It's not just white sage. It's not just quartz crystals or any crystal. There can be a bloody rock. I've gotten some very powerful stones out of creeks before that never touched a shelf of a metaphysical store. I got one up on my buffalo stone up there on my little ledge up here in my office. But they're everywhere. And, using cinnamon, that is so cool. And, it's like I said, Sage is not the only thing. I use it because that's how I was taught, but I can use cedar. I use candlelight. I use sweetgrass. I use all kinds of things. But yeah, and it's, the mother has put all this bounty out there. It's what works for you. It's not the sage. The sage does help cleanse and that sort of thing. Yeah, there's medicinal properties that way. But when you put your intent behind using that sage, that's what makes it work. That's what's important. And it's not just the sage itself. It's what's in your heart and what's coming out. Your will, your energy, your power, your gift, and your intent, what you do with it. And that's what makes it all come together. So it doesn't matter what you're using. It matters what's in your heart and what you're putting out. That's why I try to teach people. These are good stuff. It's good to go out and get stuff, to focus on. This is focusing tools. That's a great thing. Or maybe it's something that represents yourself. I mean, I went in for tattoos. You guys can't see my arms, and that's how I said yes to spirit in a lot of different ways. And so that's what I did. And everybody's got different ways of doing that, but it's all about the will and intent, and that Mother Nature provides everything we need to help heal ourselves and others.
I find it very interesting that you said the whole thing about sage, Chris, because I just recently did a podcast about Samhain and different herbs that we use in practice as well. And we talked about sage and about how, while it does have some of the medicinal properties, when it comes to cleansing of homes, it kind of ignites or reignites the will of the user to kind of take back their own power. So I find it very interesting that you said that, and that's awesome that you agree.
And you picked that up just right, too. That's exactly right. That's what I try to teach. When I cleanse people's houses, I don't want to come back every time. I'm going to teach them how to do it. You're going to take your house back.
Yes, and that's exactly what I do with my incense and things like that, is I tell people exactly how to use them so that they can have power over their own home or location, as well as teaching them about the incense and how the herbs work. As far as making things, I used to, before COVID hit, I used to teach painting classes, and I loved, my favorite group to work with was the senior citizens. I would go to their apartment buildings and we'd get together as a group, and I would bring all the supplies and everything, and I would teach them acrylic painting classes, because not only is it really awesome to have a piece of artwork when you're done that you never thought you could do, but it's also really great for healing for like arthritic conditions, things like that. So it's almost like art therapy for them. So that was one of the things that I would teach people to do. As far as making herb stuff, I haven't gone that far yet. I would like to eventually. But that's kind of out of the question at the moment just due to COVID.
Jessica, I'm sorry I have to jump in here because you mentioned about doing things for elders. And my job is that I'm an advocate for people that live in nursing homes and long-term care facilities. But a while back, I did a drum circle with memory care patients. And you should see what it does for them. It's just
awesome.
Incredible. I mean, like you said, in the case about the brain waves and stuff, the theta, it makes them come back a little bit. And like one was who never always sat on, she started dancing with the administrator, while the drumming was going on. It was just we're never even give back to elders like that. It is such a cool thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, I like giving back to really anybody that I can. I do a lot of work too with within the animal field and giving back to that as well. I'm very big on, I know you can't help everybody and everything, but for those that I can, I'm going to, and that's just kind of how I work. I just, I don't expect a dime in return or anything like that, because that's not how I work. But if I can help somebody, I'm going to, and giving back as much as possible. It's just as how I was raised. It has really nothing to do with my practice. It's just I had a good mama, I guess. That's all I can say, She taught us to show respect, show kindness, show compassion, and so that's just my livelihood now. So yeah, I'm right with you guys. Everything that you guys are doing is just phenomenal. You guys are so creative, and it's so cool to see all the little different things that you guys are all doing. Because I follow all of you on the social medias, and so it's so cool to see how you guys do things and the differences in it. I can kind of just really appreciate all of that at the same time. So I'm very thankful for you guys for being on my show. If there's anything that you guys would like to say before we do leave, feel free to do so now.
I just want to thank you for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure, and I just love talking to you. And I love the questions you ask. They're so unusual, and I feel like I get to share a side of things that I don't share as often as some of my other things, like the books or the TV show or whatever, or, my work as a choreographer. You always ask me interesting questions that nobody else asks me. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for being on. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk about the different things, because a lot of these things don't get talked about as much as what I feel they should, and so I'm hoping that this will kind of help give a little bit of an insight onto what and why we do certain things and why we create certain things. So hopefully that's the message that everybody gets, and it brings a good light to them.
Mm-hmm. Wow, Lilith, you're a choreographer too. That is too cool. You are a cool person. I've never, that's really neat. Casey, it's always fun to be on with you, and Lilith is quite correct. You ask very good questions, and you're wise beyond your years. So it's always a pleasure talking to you and to anybody who's listening. When you walk your path, walk it with honor, walk it with courage, walk it with strength. And know that you're here to help other people. That's why Spirit has put you here for all of us here. So if we all went out with that attitude, we'd be in pretty good shape. We're all going to help each other. And that's a good thing through our medicine practices or through religion, however you want to put it. But yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk. And one thing, I always meet cool people on your show. I mean, it's like Lilith, I've never met Lilith before, and I'm dying to meet her. Jessica I get to meet this weekend because we're going to be at the same event. So, it's just one of those weird synchronistic things. And so, it's just always a pleasure,
I really enjoyed talking to you all. Well, you'll like Jessica too. I got to meet her at the Hinsdale house. Yeah, she's pretty cool.
Yeah, she better be.
You guys are awesome. Yeah, just like the other two have said, Kay, it's always been great to talk to you. Like you said, we met at the Hinsdale house, and I've always had mad love for you. I think you're super dope. You're super awesome. The way you, kind of fall right into your heritage is just amazing, and you represent your heritage so well, and it's beautiful to me. And you're just a great person to be around and talk to. And I'm always thankful for our conversations that we have. And I'm always thankful when you ask me to come on your show, and you're welcome on my show anytime as well. So,
thank you.
But yeah, I just am thankful I'm be able to meet Chris tomorrow, Saturday, and then I'm also thankful, Lilith, that I get to talk to you. You have one of the coolest names ever, by the way. I always said that if I could choose my name, it would be Lilith. So,
thank you. That's the one they gave me.
That's awesome. I'm so jealous, but. Good for you. You got a cool name.
Yeah, I'm very, very thankful for you guys. All of you are very awesome. And I hope that everybody that's listening takes time to follow you guys on social media so that they can get to know you guys a little bit better. Because I think we could all use a little bit more of you guys in our daily. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful night. And I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining my circle tonight. It was a pleasure to discuss this spooky topic with you. And a thank you to all my listeners for tuning in. And as always, dreadful dreams. Remember, my darlings, to always be kind to those around you, including our friends with claws, fangs, and fur. Hello, darling. Love the show and want to be more involved? All while showing your support? Have I got the perfect thing for you? Subscribe to my Patreon page today, and as a patron, you'll have the option to select which tier you are interested in, with exclusive patron-only offers from early access, live stream chats, shoutouts, distant readings, and so much more. If this has piqued your interest, please follow the link in the chat or go to patreon.com and search Cauldron Talk with Casey Colburn and become a patron today. Thank you for your support, darlings, and as always, dreadful dreams.